Okay, welcome in. I meant to put this video up yesterday and I absolutely forgot. So it's going to look like the teams that I predicted and won Thursday's games that I could be cheating and just saying that I just did it now. But what I'm going to do is for my thumbnail, I did a video with a friend of mine. So I'm going to have that as the thumbnail picture and it's going to show how many I got right, how many he got right. And then this way you can see the entire um, predictions at least for this upcoming week. So I guess I'll start with the games that happened yesterday. It was American Thanksgiving, so happy American Thanksgiving if I have any American viewers. Um, the Detroit Lions, they annually play every Thursday uh, for Thanksgiving, and it's gone back for decades. Uh, Heading into this matchup, I predicted Detroit would win. I actually watched the entire game, and wow, what a game it was! And like it almost looked like it was going to be one of those you blew it moments for the Lions because they were up 16-0, only got one touchdown in the second half. The Bears scored 20 points in the second half, pulling the game within three, and then 30 seconds left, one timeout. That's all I'm going to say. If any Bears fans are watching, I do apologize. It was painful for me to watch, and I'm not even a Chicago fan, but I would have done things a little differently at the end of that game. So Detroit would go on to win their first home game, which they play annually at home on Thanksgiving since 2016-17, when their starting quarterback was the former quarterback in Matt Stafford. So uh, Goff, this was obviously his first win as a Lion in four tries. So congratulations, the Lions are still in first place. I think their record's now 11-1. I will do a review on Tuesday about all these games as well, but I just wanted to go through with my three predictions for yesterday. I did think the Cowboys and Giants game, I did predict that Dallas would win. They did. I didn't pay that much attention to it. I'm not going to lie. I mean, both these teams are struggling, but Dallas, they won two in a row, and they're still technically in the playoff mix. Unfortunately for the Giants, they lost, and now they're the first team that are mathematically eliminated from the postseason. So unfortunately, they will not see any meaningful play or any meaningful games in January. But I'm sure they have the draft to look forward to next year. 27-20 would be the final score, and the Sunday night game was an interconference matchup as the Green Bay Packers played host to the Miami Dolphins. I did predict that Green Bay would win, so I actually was 3-0. I got all three teams at home correct, and 30-17 will be the final score. The Packers have now improved to 9-3. The Dolphins, I believe, are 5-7. So they're now two games out of the playoffs, and depending on the outcome of the Broncos, they could be 2.5 games back at that point. So yeah, that was the three games from Thursday. Now, since I'm getting this done on Friday, I'll be able to actually do my predictions, and we'll see again how I do with my review on Tuesday. So we have an AFC game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. The best team in the AFC and the worst team in the AFC. 10-1 for the Chiefs, 2-9 for the Raiders. Um, let's be honest. If you're a Raiders fan at this point, you might as well just lose with your remaining games. This way, you're guaranteed to be in that top spot or one of the top two or three, depending how they do the rest of the season, how other teams do. You're guaranteed at least a top five pick. Well, let's be honest. If you don't win any more games, you only have two wins. The Giants, as I just talked about, they only have two wins. I mean, you're guaranteed to be at least in the top three, top four of the pick. And depending on what they need, which is clearly a quarterback, I guarantee there's going to be a high profile quarterback in the 2025 draft that they may or may not have their eyes on. And then we'll see how they do from there. So, yeah, Chiefs win this. I'll win all day. I think they're still the best team in the AFC. And at this rate, if they only have the one loss, they could easily get another first round bye, which would be their third in 4 years. Imagine having that extra week off of rest and knowing that you're guaranteed to play a divisional matchup. Every team looks forward to that. And I feel that if the Chiefs keep winning, there's no way to stop them. Now, if they finish with the same record as Buffalo, because Buffalo beat them, obviously the Bills will have home field advantage. But I mean, the Chiefs at this point, whether it's uglier or it's not, they're pulling out wins left and right. So yeah, I think Kansas City walks away with a Black Friday victory. Okay, so the majority of the remainder of the games, and by the way, there's no bye weeks this week, so every single team has or is playing. Ooh, I scrolled too far. Okay, still the Atlanta Falcons are 6-5, still at first place in that NFC South, are taking on the 7-4 Los Angeles Chargers. I believe they are currently in the second wild card spot in the AFC. So a critical game for both these teams. Obviously, Atlanta, if they can get a win, which would be their first one in like 3 weeks, then then they'll obviously have a little bit more comfort room when it comes to getting that crown in the NFC South. And as for the Chargers, a bad break last week when they played against the Ravens, another team in the wild card spot just ahead of them now. Every game from here is going to be crucial because if they want to be guaranteed a playoff spot, they got to keep winning. I know the Broncos are just behind them in the standings, and realistically, those two teams should make the playoffs. But again, there's still 6 more weeks left of football, so anything can happen. The Colts are still in it, and I think they're below 500. And even though the Dolphins lost, there's still only a couple of games, as I just talked about before. So there's nothing locked in this so far this season. I'm going to give the edge to the Chargers. I think they are the better team, and no disrespect to Kirk Cousins, but Justin Herbert and me is a better quarterback in this matchup. And coming from a Broncos fan, if I'm giving your quarterback praise, like it's hard for me to crap on Mahomes, and it's really hard for me to crap on Justin Herbert. They're both very good elite quarterbacks, and yeah, I can easily see Chargers winning this game. And even if the Falcons do lose, they'll still be in first place. So there's really no huge panic. But obviously, I'm sure they would rather stop their losing skid and get back in the W's and further their distance in that division. An NFC North battle between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are in first place, I believe, unless the Ravens jump them. But I'll check the standings here in just a second. They're probably guaranteed a playoff spot. Will they finish first in the division or in the wild card spot? There's no way Pittsburgh's not going to have a winning. There's no way they're not making the playoffs. Whether they have Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, I mean, yes, they have two different quarterbacks that play two different styles, but so far they've led them to 8 wins respectively between the two quarterbacks. And for the Bengals, this is a make or break game. If they lose this game, their season's basically over because you can't go to 4-8. You have to win 5 games in a row and pray that every team ahead of you is losing, and you can't rely on other teams to lose. You have to rely on yourself to win. So the Bengals need this game a lot more than Pittsburgh does. And as I said before, if they go to drop to 4-8, I think there's like less than a 10% chance or a 5% chance that they're making the playoffs if they drop 4 games below 500. So I'm giving the edge to the Bengals in this one, only because they will be the more desperate of the two teams to get a win, just to keep their playoff hopes alive. The AFC South has the Jacksonville Jaguars 2-9 taking on the 7-5 Houston Texans. Now, because Houston lost last week, I guarantee they have a giant chip on their shoulder, and they need to win because they should have beat the Titans last week. Stroud had a couple of picks, and definitely seemed more human rather than being this super human, if that makes any sense. And sorry, I'm scrolling too much again. And as for the Jaguars, they're 2-9. I mean, they're not technically eliminated, but I feel if they drop to 2-10, that they should at least be eliminated, if that makes any sense, because they even if they won out their next 7 games, they'd still finish, or 5 games, or whatever it is, they'd still finish with like a 7-9 or 8-9 record. There's no way they're finishing above 500 this year. So for the Jaguars, I think you might as well, kind of like you're in the same boat as the Raiders, you might as well just lose out the season, because if you end up dropping in the standings, then other teams could be getting a player that you really want. And it's very scarce for teams to want to trade up or trade down in that case when it comes to the draft. So I think Houston definitely should get the win in this one. If they do happen to lose, they'd still technically be in first place in the AFC South, but they'd only have like a game lead, maybe a game and a half on lead on the Colts. And if obviously the Colts win, then they'll pull within a game of each other. And it could be a dogfight again, trying to get that AFC South crown the rest of the way. So yeah, I think Houston definitely should have a bounce back game, and they should improve to 8-5. Now, two really good teams, the Minnesota Vikings, are playing host to the Arizona Cardinals. Minnesota, I believe, they are currently in second place in that NFC North. They should make the playoffs, whether it doesn't matter at this point who their quarterback is. They're just gelling so well. Obviously, Sam Darnold is having a breakout season, so like fingers crossed that doesn't get hurt the rest of the way. But yeah, Minnesota's looking very strong, very competitive, and they're now trailing Detroit by 2 games in that NFC North. So if they want to keep pace with Detroit, they need to get this win. As for Arizona, man, that NFC West, it's a head scratcher. There's so many, like the teams are so close to each other, but other teams are underperforming, and obviously some teams are overperforming. In this case, Arizona's overperforming. Not, and I'm not no not trying to be disrespectful or say that they shouldn't be in the position that they're in, but when you think in preseason, who was your favorite to win the NFC West? Guaranteed, probably a lot of people said the 49ers. Maybe some people got bold and said the Seahawks could. Maybe some people still believe in the Rams that they could still try to win on that division. But who would have had the Arizona Cardinals leading that way? I definitely wouldn't have put them there, but they're proving me wrong. And that's in a good way. I mean, they're doing very well. They're finally gelling. Kyler Murray is turning into the player that everyone, including myself, thought he would be. And I mean, they made the playoffs just three years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like they've been not a competitive team. They've just been plagued by injuries and inconsistencies. But they're a very good team. I think they need this win more than the Vikings because they would still want to be competitive. If they win, they would improve to 7-5. But I believe the Seahawks also have 6 wins, if I'm not mistaken. So a loss here and say a Seahawks win, then Arizona could get bumped down. And I think it's going to be too hard to get a lot of teams in the wild card position, especially since there's 3 really good teams in the NFC North. So that's guaranteed 2 wild card spots just right there. So if Arizona happens to drop out of first place, then they could be fighting for playoff lives just to try to keep pace in that wild card spot. So I think Arizona should get the win, but my heart's saying go with Minnesota, especially at home. So I think Minnesota finally gets to double-digit wins. They should improve to 10-2, and I think Arizona will drop to 6-6. But again, I could easily be wrong. Now, the next match takes place in New England, and we have the Patriots and the Indianapolis Colts. Now, if this game was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I'd say this is the game of the week because you would have had Peyton Manning, you would have had Tom Brady, probably two of the best quarterbacks to play against each other during their tenure. A lot of people could argue about decades in the past, but I grew up in like the 2000s, so I mean this was the game of the week almost every Sunday. But yeah, both these teams are struggling, but the Indianapolis they are in a better boat. They're 5-7. New England's 3-9. I firmly believe if New England loses this home game, they would technically be eliminated because then they'd have to win out the remaining 5 games, and they'd only have they would finish 7-10. We'll put it that way if they were to win out the rest of the weeks from 14 to 18. But yeah, just a tough road, ho ho. But Drake May is a rookie quarterback, and a lot of rookie quarterbacks they struggle in their first season. Yes, recently we have seen rookie quarterbacks being more successful, and maybe this is a turn of the tide kind of a thing. But it's very scarce for a guy who gets drafted have a very good first season in the NFL. So there is I'm not gonna lie, there are going to be hard times for at least a couple of years because you have the likes of the Dolphins and the Bills in your same division. So unfortunately, they're probably going to still finish at the bottom of that AFC East. As for the Colts, they're 5-7. They're only 2 games back of a playoff spot, both for a wild card position and also a division one as well. So if Houston happens to lose and Indy happens to win, as I just previously talked about, Indy could pull within 1 game of the division. And I think that would give them a better chance of making the playoffs. If they happen to drop to 5-8, they could almost be 3 games back of a wild card spot. So this is a very critical game for Indy. I think that the end result will be the Colts pulling this one off. I just have a little bit more faith in Quentin Richardson than I do in Drake May. But again, not trying to be disrespectful, just giving you my take. Okay, staying in the AFC East, the New York Jets 3-8, taking on the 6-5 Seahawks. So I was correct. Seattle also has 6 wins, along with Arizona. So they're basically tied for first place in that NFC West. The Jets, I've said so much about them. I'm just done talking about them. I'd rather them just lose out the remaining games and see how they do with the pick and what they're going to do with the whole Aaron Rodgers drama. For me personally, I'd say get rid of him. It hasn't worked out for 2 years, and it's not like he's in his early 30s or mid 30s. The guy's pushing 40. If he's in 40 already, he's not going to be the same quarterback that he was when he was in Green Bay. Let's just be realistic. They took a swing, and this is a huge miss for the Jets in this 2 year experiment. If he comes back for another year, maybe he'll be a little bit more successful. But I mean, for a team that had not just playoff aspirations, but Super Bowl aspirations, and they haven't made the playoffs now in over a decade, um, there's a lot of question marks. I'm not gonna lie. If you're a Jets fan, I don't know what you do. I really don't. It feels like you're kind of in purgatory. You can't go one way or the other. The Seahawks are having a very good year, as I've said. I'm sure, and anytime they win, as I said, if they're not in first place, they're at least guaranteed to be second place in that NFC West. And I think this is a game they could and should win. And I mean, you can't take teams for granted because Jets at this point are basically just playing spoiler. I don't see a scenario where they make the playoffs being 5 games below 500. And even if the Jets did happen to win, they'd be 4-8. They'd still be 4 games below 500. And a lot of teams are getting to 7, 8 wins. You'd be still be 4 games back of them. And when I said if you have to rely on other teams to lose, that's not looking too good on you. That's just my take. But Seattle should get this victory, and they still should be competitive in that NFC West. Now we're off to Washington. They're 7-5, taking on the 3-8 Tennessee Titans. Congrats, Titans! You got another win. Too bad you already have 8 losses. I'm deeming this season as basically done. I think if they drop to 3-9, again, at best they finish 8-9. But why would you want to hurt your chances on taking a mid-round pick when you could be guaranteed a possible top 10 pick in the 2025 draft? So for the Titans, I'm sure you don't ever want to go into having the mindset we just want to lose out this season. I'm sure they would love to keep winning, especially after a huge road win last week in Houston. But going up against Commanders team, now this team, yes, they're struggling, but I think they have a bounce back game against the Titans because they want to still stay competitive for a possible playoff spot in this year's playoffs. So I'm going to give the edge to the Commanders in this game. The NFC South has the 3-8 Carolina Panthers taking on the 5-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For Carolina, a tough loss. I think they lost last week, if I'm not mistaken, to the Chiefs. They took them to the end of the game, and I think it would end up being 20-17. I can't remember if it was in regulation or overtime, but either way, it was close enough that they could have won that game, and that obviously would have sure given them a little bit more confidence. But I mean, there's a reason the Chiefs are the back-to-back Super Bowl champs. So you can't feel too bad if you lose. I mean, I'm a Broncos fan. I had a heartbreak loss earlier this year, so any team that's lost to the Chiefs, I'm sure we can all relate to that one subject at least. Tampa Bay, this is a really crucial game. They're only, I think, a game back of the Falcons. So if Atlanta happens to lose and say Tampa wins, then they could be back in first place or at least tied for first in that NFC South division. So very critical game for Tampa Bay. But with any division matchup, anything could happen. I mean, Carolina could easily play spoiler and make Tampa Bay go to 5-7. But if I'm looking at if I'm looking at Baker Mayfield, I apologize over. Oh my God, I've said the quarterback's name I know a couple of times for the Panthers. Why am I drawing a blank? Either way, I'll figure that out after I upload this. I think I would go on the experience. I mean, Tampa Bay did win the division last year, so they can easily go back to back. But this is going to be a very big game for them, and they need this win more than I think Carolina does. All right, now we're off to the Bayou as we have the New Orleans Saints, who are 4-7, taking on the 5-6 Los Angeles Rams. Now, on paper, this is a game I'm a little stuck on because I know when I did a video with a friend of mine, I predicted New Orleans, but I circled the Los Angeles Rams on this paper. This is a game I really don't know who to pick. Like my heart says this team, but my gut says another team. So I'm stuck in the middle. I think this is one of those games. It's a 50-50 thing for me. I can easily see New Orleans winning this game at home, especially if as long as they have Derek Carr. But I can also see the more veteran quarterback in Matt Stafford lead the team to another victory. Now, for me, the thing that throws me off with Los Angeles is they've been so wishy-washy all year. I think they were 1-3 when they started the season out. They got back to 500, but now it's like lose, win, lose, win, lose, win. And this isn't the way you want to finish or go into the last part of the season with that mindset. Is we lose one game, we win one game, because this is, if they lose and they go to 5-7, they'll have the same record as New Orleans. So then if they happen to have the same record at the end of the season, New Orleans will obviously finish higher than them. B, if they drop to 5-7, they would be almost 2 games back out of a wild card spot, depending on how Washington does and whoever else is in the wild card spot in the NFC. And those, if this and but that, like that can't be something that you're too pleased about. Like, this is a game that I'm the cat's got my tongue. I don't know what to say or really who to predict in this one. I guess I'll go with LA. I mean, but again, New Orleans can win too. Like, I'm really stuck on this matchup. But I think for a team that's trying to make the playoffs versus a team that they're kind of in the same situation, because if New Orleans wins, they would be ahead of the Rams. And if Washington happens to lose, then both those teams are only 2 games back of a wild card spot. So, like, I'm stuck. I really don't know who to pick, but I guess I'll go with the Rams. I mean, if they get this win, they'll be 6-6, and then they'll only possibly be a game behind Washington for that final wild card spot. But then they can also be tied for first in the NFC West. Like, that division is so close, it's insane. So I'll pick the Rams, but just by a hair. All right, now this next matchup, I'm going to be glued to the TV on this one. I'm telling you, the Ravens and Philadelphia Eagles, this will be the game of the week. I don't care what anybody else says. This will be the game of the week. You have the first place, 9-2, uh, NFC East, at least first place. Philadelphia Eagles taking on the 8-4 Baltimore Ravens. They are in a fight for their, like a dog fight for that NFC North crown, but I think it's going to come down to the Ravens and Steelers. Don't think the Browns and the Bengals are coming back to win that division. Let's be completely honest with you. But this is going to be a high scoring game. I think this game is going to end up being something crazy like 36-33 or 35-32. I can easily see both of these teams playing. Like, I think if you're a defensive fan, this is not the game for you. I don't think there's going to be a lot of 3-and-outs. I think there's going to be a lot of touchdowns. And I think this game could come down to the wire. It could come down to a second possession or a field goal, whatever the case may be is. But I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. And just as a little side note, if this ended up being a Super Bowl matchup, I think it would be absolutely epic. Plus, I'm a little tired of the Chiefs being in there, just FYI. But I'm going to give the edge to the Ravens. I think they have at home, they're looking to, like I said, they're trying to get back into first place, and that's AFC North, I should say, because they don't want to start the season out on the road. That could be bad news bears all over it, if you know what I mean. So I think the Ravens take this matchup, but I think it's going to be a very high scoring game, and I can't wait for this one. The Sunday night matchup takes place between the 5-6 Bills. Sorry, no, I'm just joking. The 5-6 San Francisco 49ers and the 9-2 Buffalo Bills. The Bills have this game all locked in. I think there's like a severe snowstorm. So I remember last year, I'm pretty sure that the Bills chairman or whoever it was, they were asking if any fans wanted to come and help shovel out the stadium parking lot and the stadium and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Bill Mafia showed up with some shovels and helping their team keep some snow off the ground. I thought that was pretty neat, and just because shows how dedicated the fans really are. I mean, if they're willing to show up there and shovel the snow for you, I mean, shit, you're doing something right. The San Francisco 49ers are 5-6, and for the 49ers, injuries have plagued them all year. They should be at least 8-3, 9-2. Unfortunately, injuries have plagued them all season, but it's really not the end of the world. Even though they don't have Darnold and whoever else that they have, not Darnold. Who's their starting quarterback? Is it Darnold? No, it's not. Not Darnold. Oh my God, Purdy. I'm sorry about that. But the 49ers, they're in a situation similar to the Rams. They're both 5-6. They're both underperforming, but a loss here really wouldn't be the end of the world, because if the Seahawks and Cardinals both lose and say the 49ers lose, they're still only a game back of first place. So I think all 4 teams are really, it's like a 25% chance at this rate you're getting that division. So it's not really the end of the world. I'm sure the 49ers would love to go into Buffalo and get back to 500 and then see how they do from week 14 to week 18. But I'm giving the Bills the edge in this one. I think they will improve to 10-2. They really want to try to get home field advantage, but now they have to rely on Kansas City losing a game. And as I talked about before, you can't rely on other teams to lose if you want to try and be in the same position or better than they are. But I think the Bills for sure want to be really competitive. Um, at worst case scenario, at the end of the season, they finish in second place. At least they're guaranteed. Yes, you have to play a wild card round and anything can happen, but they're guaranteed at least two potential home playoff games, and that could be crucial if this team wants to do what they want to do is to get to an AFC Championship and then have a chance at a Super Bowl. I still think the Bills are in the conversation for Super Bowl favorites. I can see them winning on the road or away from home. They're that good this year. So yeah, I think Bills Mafia, you'll get your 10th season this Sunday night. Now, this is the game that I am so excited for. Unfortunately, I have to work when the game is on, so I'm going to miss this game. The Denver Broncos are 7-5. They are currently in the seventh playoff spot, and they're taking on the 3-8 Cleveland Browns. So on paper, the Broncos should have this one easily. A lot of people I've seen are making predictions. They are giving them 10 plus points in this one for like they should win by 10 or more points. I think this is going to be a closer game than a lot of people think. I mean, the Browns were 2-8. They played that Thursday night game against the Steelers, who were 8-2 at the time, and they ended up beating Pittsburgh at home. Yes, you could say that the snow might have helped, but Pittsburgh also plays in the snow, so it really wasn't that big of a deal for them. They're used to the cold. But the Browns defense, they came up big. I think Garrett had 3 sacks. He's just a beast, man. And I'd be a little scared. Like for the Broncos, they have their bye week next weekend. So they are guaranteed not to be playing. They want to go into that bye week 8-5. They don't want to drop to 7-6 because, as I've said previously, if Indy happens to win and if any other teams have 5 wins, like the Dolphins, if they win next week, then they'd pull within a game of the Broncos for that last playoff spot, and they need this home win more than anything. I will give the Broncos a slight edge. I think this could be a one possession game, might even come down to a field goal game. I think this might even be a defensive struggle. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, the Browns sacked Wilson 4 times last week, and the Broncos, they have a crazy defense. I would have guessed this 5 years ago when Vance Joseph was our head coach that we'd have a defense as elite as they are right now. I'm pretty sure that they are first in the league in sacks and pressuring the quarterback. Like, this is just a crazy team. And if I was a quarterback on the opposing team, I'd be scared to death thinking that, oh my God, like they're going to have 5 people rushing me and I could go down multiple times in this game. But with that being said, the Browns also have a very good defense. Like I said, they sacked Wilson 4 times last week. So I can easily see the Browns getting at least a sack against Bo Nix. And I don't want to see it happen because I don't think Nix has taken a sack. He only took 1 sack in 2 games. But this Browns defense is good, and they can't overlook the Browns. They can't overlook any team, especially if you're trying to be competitive and make a playoffs. I don't care if they have 2 wins, 3 wins, no wins. If you are looking forward to your week off and you're thinking, oh, we're going to walk through and we're going to easily win this game, that's a bad mindset to have. Like, you can't take the Browns for granted. Like I said, they beat the Steelers last week. I'm sounding like a broken record. I apologize. But yeah, this is a very crucial game for Denver. If they want to make the playoffs, they need this home win. But like I said, I think it's going to be a slim margin. It might come down to a field goal. I don't think they're winning by 10, 15 points. All right, so that's my predictions for week 13, I believe, of the National Football League. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. Until next time, take care.